freediving is a dangerous sport and sometimes there is a need to save lives. Natalia Molchanova was writing her second PhD thesis about safety in freediving for all. Indeed, this sport used to be more dangerous than it is now, as freedivers relied heavily on hyperventilation and on willpower. Later, freedivers started to use meditation, which seems to have made the sport safer and probably more efficient. With Natalia, we suspected that besides force and meditation, there is a kind of third ingredient in freediving. But we hesitated to research this hypothetical third ingredient because even the second ingredient, meditation, is somehow despised by the people. We wanted to understand why this conservative rejection of meditation before going into researching an even more controversial technique. Yes, there is this rejection besides the fact that meditation and a state of trance is proved to be efficient to set personal bests in sports. Functional magnetic resonance imaging show that the meditative state of mind is completely different from goal-oriented egocentric state of mind to which we are the most used to. The benefit of having a meditative mindset is an ease to learn new stuff and to be creative. In what appears to be a greedy business environment, a meditative altruistic state of mind helps to avoid big losses and blunders. There is this recommendation to avoid aggressive competitive markets with low profitability and altruistically and compassionately try to create new markets. Compassion being an act to reduce suffering in strangers. And by the way, compassion would save oxygen. But we are mostly well fed in our consumerist post-industrial society, and we prefer an egotistic good meal to some meditation. And fortunately, we are not often confronted directly to sufferers, thus we don't have much occasions to switch to compassionate altruistic mindset. Thus we sometimes admire aggressive power. Such possible logic about why we stay in the egotistic mindset made us finally look into altruistic meditative mindset and eventually into compassion, where we suspected this third ingredient in freediving routines. At first, we looked into CO2 narcosis. Investigating CO2 narcosis seemed very easy because it was well described by Ladislas Meduna and his colleagues before and after the Second World War. They treated against the stress and PTSD thousands and thousands of patients. In this brief version of the video, I will skip most of what we know about CO2. We'll just mention that it is used to stress human subjects in research, and this poor dog who sustained up to 60 minutes of CO2 buildup before unfortunately dying. So, looking in this book and medical papers of Meduna and his colleagues in the 50s, we can see that the description of CO2 narcosis was somehow religious. Also, several freedivers are reporting religious experiences, and we can suspect then these experiences are hallucinations from CO2 narcosis. Would it be the case of somehow fanatical religious believers. We tried to look into it, and we found no correlations between traits of character and the possibility to get religious experience underwater. And neither did other researchers in this area. So being materialistic and having a scientific approach, we just self-experimented with CO2 narcosis in a pool. This is me self-experimenting, and Natalia is my safety. At some point, I was kind of thrown into sort of outer world, and I felt great in my kind of soul. There was a strong samba, and I was kind of accepting the death of my body because I felt so great. I wanted to stay longer. And I felt Natalia was worried, diving again and again to check on me, and I decided to ascend just to stop her being worried. And the first words were, "I love you all," after surfacing. So what was that? I was never religious, I was never spiritual, I was never a believer in all this stuff. I was perfectly materialistic and rational. So we were completely stuck and desperate. We didn't know what to do with such experiences. Was it this CO2 narcosis inducing some sort of temporary craziness? Sometimes the more stuck you are, the brighter is the solution found later. So this time we could found the solution because of a help from American researchers in the medical school of Johns Hopkins University. They helped us with their experience about researching religious and mystical, and the psychological school of Moscow State University helped us with the statistics. This is a tool, the questionnaire from the American researchers. We submitted it and got responses from hundreds and hundreds of freedivers across the world. And with a statistical method called confirmatory factor analysis, we could prove then mystical and religious experience in freediving is a repetitive, subjective reality. The methodology is pretty standard, and after proving that, the question was, are there any practical application of this religious mystical experience in freediving? We don't know for freedivers for sure, but we can look into practical application of and practical benefits of religious experience in other areas. It seems that just one mystical experience immediately can cure addictions to tobacco and to alcohol. It can cure PTSD and stress, and it can dramatically reduce the fear of death into terminally ill patients. But us, we are in sports, not in medicine. So it would be interesting to continue this research and to know what use of religious experience are there in sports and fitness. There are several anecdotes. For example, the big champions Fyodor Emelianenko and Maria Pierce are telling us that after one mystical experience, they could boost their performance to an even upper level. And since there is this aspect of going beyond self and to becoming compassionate, we can also look into heroes of war. They put their lives in danger to help strangers, to help others. In sports, we have to overcome some pain or at least a discomfort, and maybe the feeling of being part of a human chain, and at the end there is some reducing of somebody suffering. Maybe this idea can help to overcome pain and discomfort. It may be investigated in future research. But for now, let's come back to where we started, blackouts in freediving. The champion is accounting all four facets of a religious experience underwater, exactly the one we could scientifically prove to be a sort of a subjective reality for many freedivers. So the situation and the facts were somehow clarified, and now it's up to the next generation of researchers to take over and to look further. Maybe they will find a practical application and a methodology to use this new ingredient in freediving. That's it. Thank you for your attention. Bye.